Thank you, Vikram. Thank you, Manthan. It's indeed a moment in your CV to say that you are speaking at Manthan. So, while most often I think our organizers are grateful to speakers, it's a reversal of roles this evening. It was Ashish Nandi who said, and I quote, "The popular film is a lowbrow modernizing India in all its complexity, sophistry, naivety and vulgarity. Studying popular film is studying Indian modernity in its rawest, its crudities laid bare by the fate of traditions in contemporary life and arts. Above all, it's studying caricatures of ourselves," unquote. I'm not going to start off with Raja Harishchandra, after all it was silent cinema. But today when you, and if I have to go back to Nandi who talks about cinema being a reflection of what it is, our culture. And today when we see bad, crass cinema, then this very rich civilization reflects a poor culture, and in that dichotomy is an India that is growing. I know of this little student and a lesson that I've learned from Farhan. He said, never be afraid of any topic at a debate. Get your philosophy straight, stick to it, and any topic under the sky, go into that philosophy and you're comfortable. And all of us have heard the story about this little boy who wrote up an essay on the cow. And on any topic under the sky, he would relate it to a cow. It could be a visit to a city, it could be a train journey, it could be dad, it could be animal, it could be zoo, it could be anything. It would come down to a cow. And he'll start writing extensively on the cow. So while I'd like to take Ashish Nandi, I should resist the temptation of dealing with Indian culture today, how it is functioning, how functional are we in the context of a functional democracy, etc., and deal with cinema period if I can, and use imperatively in the backdrop the reality that is our culture. I've broadly said I would talk about cinema, music, about women in cinema, violence in our cinema, parallel cinema, comedy, if there is anything like that in our cinema, seriously, literature in our cinema, politics in our cinema, some broad areas that I would like to speak. The reason I put music above everything else in our cinema is that in contradistinction to most other international cinema, I think Bollywood in particular, or for that matter cinema in India by and large, is constructively based around music. While Shankarabharanam stands out as a standout example now, in the last 20 years of whatever time it was released. I think it was released sometime in 88, circa 80s. So, you go back, you have the second Hindi film which has had 69 songs. And you have many versions of our own sounds of music. We've had a Baiju Bawra, you've had Mughal Azam. You just have to name a Hindi film which had at least 5, 6, 7 good Hindi film songs. More importantly today, when I say Shami Kapoor, I'm just taking an example. I think of Ehsaan Tera Hoga Mujh Par or Chahe Koi Mujhe Jangli Kahe. Inevitably, I think of Lal Chali Maidan Khadi. I think of Shankar Jaikishan. I think of Hasrat Jaipuri. I think of Shailendra. I think of Mohammad Rafi. In this crowded space, when I say Raj Kapoor, I immediately say Mera Juta Hai Chapani. When I say Madhubala, I immediately say Pyar Kiya To Dharna Kya. So, there is a very complex but very deep rooted connect between Hindi cinema and Hindi film music. In fact, it is also my theory that one of the reasons for very hesitant acceptance of parallel cinema for all the value that it had, and notwithstanding the fact that it had some brilliant music like directors like Ravichander and Manraj Bhatia, it continued to be parallel cinema because when you come back from a theatre often, you carry home a couple of songs in your mind, and parallel cinema did not. Now take a film like Manthan. There is a Preeti Sagar song done by Manraj Bhatia. That song was very popular, and that is why Manthan remains a very popular parallel cinema in compared to say Ankur or Nishant, which were arguably better films of Shyam Benegal when compared to Manthan. Now, therefore, music was such an important part of our cinema. Also, if you look at the curve of our storytelling, we started off with Indian mythology. Raja Harishchandra was there, Alam Ara was there, all quasi-historic films. Now, in the context of these narratives, music became a part of the story because folk music and folklore were twins. And when it started superimposing itself on the fabric of a new art, it started bringing with it its luggage, namely music. Unfortunately, there was also a tremendous richness in the, and I am only talking about Hindi cinema, had an amazing richness of language, be it Urdu, be it Hindi. And therefore, great writers, poets, Sahir, Majroo, Haifi, all of them had written so much, not essentially for cinema, but had mirrored so much more about society, that they had to come down essentially a few steps to adjust their lyrical content or their poetic content to the context of the laity or the cinema that they were catering to, as a consequence of which great literature became a part of our compositions of music and became an integral part of the heritage or the tapestry of our cinema. Unfortunately, and I am going to, let me tell you, my talk today is going to be like a Hindi film. It's going to be extremely poor in editing. It's going to be very poor on technology. It's going to be loud. And it may have a hidden agenda of marketing Hindi cinema in one way, at the same time being critical about the same. In this context, I am telling you that a problem with today's Hindi film music in compared to what it was in the golden years, the best period, as most people arguably say, is the 50s and the 60s. I put it to two major reasons. I will come back to it at a point in time, but one major reason is the coming of Amitabh Bachchan. And the second is, if you see today, most of our Hindi film songs are some kind of a hybrid of Punjabi, Hindi, and whatever language you want to call it, with no pretensions of being honestly of a certain language. Very rarely there is a Javed Akhtar song or a Gulzar Saab song, in spite of the fact that they also write all kinds of songs. The fact remains that Urdu is replaced today with Punjabi. I know Jasbeen Jairath is not here, so I can say that with a little more confidence. Also, we had some great filmmakers who understood cinema music. And to understand cinema in the context of storytelling, like a Frank Coppola or somebody would do, in contradistinction with somebody who catered to a separate genre, which inherently brought in music as a part of its storytelling, was a different ballgame. And in this context, I can remember great filmmakers like Raj Kapoor, films of Devanand, where I suspect a lot of this had to do with Vijay Anand, his brother Goldie, Gurudutt, and in much later times, Subhash Ghai. These were filmmakers who filled the entire gamut of the pendulum. You could have had Raj Kapoor and Subhash Ghai at one end, Gurudutt at the other extreme. Two very different genres of filmmaking, both of who understood music in their cinema. Very strangely, Gurudutt relied heavily on Barmanda, Hemant, used the voices of Geeta Dutt, Hemant Kumar and Mohammad Rafi. While you went to Raj Kapoor, he relied heavily on Manada, Mukesh, Lata of course, and Shankar Jaikishan. Notice if you see any song from Gurudutt, and I found this puzzling, I am yet to find an answer, and I will be very happy if somebody over here who is a film buff can tell me why or what was the reason that there was so little Lata Mangeshkar in Gurudutt's films, because after all, Gurudutt was willing to do anything for a good film. Not a song in Sahib Bibi aur Ghulam, not a song in Aar Paar. I can understand in the earlier part of his career when after all he had the best singer at home, Geeta Dutt. So why would he have to go to anybody when Geeta Dutt was there? But even in the post Geeta Dutt era, he had Asha Bhosle singing more songs than Lata Mangeshkar. I think he's got one or two songs in Chaudhary Ka Chand or one more film. Otherwise, Asha Bhosle is the go-to singer in the songs that Gurudutt made. Then you have the reason that I am talking about, Amitabh Bachchan. Now, what happened to our cinema circa 1974 when the angry young man woke up to the nightmare of the murder of his father in Prakash Mehra's Zanjeer? He completely changed the concept of Hindi films in two important criteria. Hitherto, two important criteria of our cinema was the heroine. I am going to talk about women in our cinema in a short while. And the other was the song. In most Amitabh Bachchan films, these took a back seat. Even in a film where he is a singer, there are only 3 Amitabh Bachchan voiced songs. Abhiman, Meet Na Milare, Meri Teri Bindiya Re, and Tere Mere Milan Kiye Rehna. There is of course Lute Koi Man Ka Nagar. So 4 songs to him, and all the other songs go to Lata Mangeshkar. And I always ask myself, if only Shankar Jaikishan was doing Abhiman, would there have been a little more space for music? Because after all, Rishikesh Mukherjee was still the commanding force in that film and not Amitabh Bachchan. But by and large, what had happened from then was, he replaced the romanticist Rajesh Khanna, who in his own phenomenal way had put under the carbon the 3 trio, the Joy Mukherjee Biswajits, the Shami Kapoors, the Rajendra Kumars, and all those guys whose cinema was so poor otherwise in content, that you had to have the richness of a Rafi, Lata, Shankar Jaikishan coming to ensure that the film was well packed. After all, those days we lived at a time when marketing was necessary on content, not just on lies. Those were still not the days in a polity where alternate facts were sufficient to control the market. Now, then of course, we've had some genius music directors in the post Shankar Jaikishan era. I can think of R.D. Burman. There's Rajesh, Roshan, Bappi, Lahiri, all of them who came around. But the problem with our songs making was most film makers suddenly said that I only want item numbers, or I want songs that are foot tapping. And therefore, if you realize, foot tapping songs last even today if you go for a Mehdi function or a Sangeet, but you don't hear them anywhere else. Even today, if you have a 30-year-old and an 18-year-old sitting and doing an Antakshari, even the 18-year-old would sing Yahu chahe koi mujhe jangli kahe, or Mera juta hai Japani, or Mohe bhool gaye Savariya. But you will be very sure that their repertoire of contemporary Hindi songs will also be very, very, very suspect. Now, the other aspect that I would probably deal with is that we've had some amazing singer stars from Suraya, Noor Jahan, Kanan Devi. We have now come to Shakti Kapoor's daughter, and considering that the singer-artist's constricted space in Bollywood could reflect what they bring alongside with them to the music aspect of a film. And the other problem I see with our films in the context of music again is that today's even mainstream filmmakers are trying too hard to say one thing or the other. Therefore, even a Karan Johar film like Ricky and Rani doesn't leave you with impactful songs, in spite of the fact that you have Jhumka Girare or something like that coming around as a remix rather than anything else. It's a very strange thing, incidentally, I must tell you, that in a Madan, we all look at Madan Mohan as Lata Mangeshkar's Madan Bhai, and the Lata Madan is supposed to be an amazing combination, and in that tier of Mera Saya, Jhumka Girare, Mera Saya's songs like other songs, the title song and Nayano Mein Kajra Dale and all, which are much better melodies, lost to Asha Bhosle's Jhumka Girare at the Binaka Geetmala hit parade. So, the fact is that this tendency to have foot tapping music may not be very, very new, but those days there was also along with a certain solid amount of good film music, which was either music based, raga based, lyrics based, event based. For example, it's approximately 40 years since I saw Sangam. I can still imagine Vaijayanti Mala doing O Mere Sanam, O Mere Sanam. I can still see Vaijayanti Mala doing Tadap Ye Din Raat Ki, Kasak Ye Bin Baat Ki in a film like Amrapali. But I can't remember what Deepika Padukone did when she was singing a song in a film like Gehrai, which is just 1 year ago. And this is not because I have better scenes to remember of Deepika Padukone in that seemingly adult film of hers, Gehrai. That much for our music. While there is a theory that we copied a lot from Western music, I am not going into that controversy at all. To me, my constitution itself is an amalgam. How we handled it later is a different story. Is an amalgam of multiple constitutions across the world, and none other than Atal Bihari Vajpayee told the world about the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So, you know who I am quoting. So, this Catholicity is a part of our culture. So, I am not concerned, I am not defending, I do not think it needs to be defended that a part of our music has a historic connect or we were aping the West in kinds of music. I am not going into that. Suffice it is for me to say that a lot of our Hindi film mainstream songs, if we sit down with a Hindustani musician or a Carnatic musician, they will tell you on what raga these songs are based, how the notes of those songs are very similar to the usage of certain ragas while playing the song, like Mere Naina Savan Bhado or Jane Kahan Gaye Wo Din from Rag Shivaranjani, just to throw an example at you. Now, today, while the richness with which A.C. Ramchandra came, later on Naushad, O.P. Nayyar, and then the game changers, Shankar Jaikishan, till R.D. Burman came and challenged it. Orchestra had that symphonic, that tandemic place with lyric. Today, they are divorced. They function in parallel lines and the twain do not meet. Very often, the twain do not meet. The next aspect of our cinema that I would like to talk about would be probably women in our cinema. I am again going back to what I told you in a while ago about Ashish Nandi, who said that it reflects our culture, the way we see women, the way we project women. There is this little story that I am never tired of relating. There is this little boy, all of 16 or 17, going abroad for the first time with his father, who was making one of his multiple trips to the United States. So, the father told his son on the way that, listen boy, you can do what you want, you can have fun, you can do your buys, you can go shopping, but don't go to these nightclubs. So, the boy said yes, and being 15, obviously he was curious. So, one of the first thing he does is after he goes to the US, makes friends with a local and wants to go to a nightclub. He does go to a nightclub, comes out of the nightclub with his friend, and the friend asks him, did you see anything in the nightclub that you ought not to have seen? He said, yes, I did see something. The local American or the native was surprised because he's been there multiple times and he's never seen anything which he thought he should not see. So, he asked him out of curiosity, what is it that you saw there that you ought not to have seen? The young boy said, I saw my father there. Now, this double speak is a very simple characteristic of our society. The father who wants his son to do his homework every day is the guy who postpones his office work every day. The father who says, do not cheat, is the one who's plagiarizing his work in his research labs. The father who says, be honest, is the one who's signing up wrong LTC bills. They're part of our culture. The same country that praises Durga, Saraswati, says Aigiri Nandini Nandita Medini and praises all the lords of this country, are the same which show bride burning, are the same which would have men making lewd comments and catcalls at women. I am not even going to Nirbhaya. This dichotomy leads to a certain unhygienic, consistent objectification of women, which is arguably one of the most unhealthy parts of mainstream cinema. I am not saying Deepika Padukone is showing more of her skin than Meena Kumari did, because it's aesthetically better to see more of Deepika Padukone than to see more of Meena Kumari anatomically. Now, I am not making a sexist statement here. I am only saying that the idea that that you need to present a heroine in a certain style, stereotypical manner, has not really changed, dehorsed the fashion of the day, of the times. And the problem with that is that today all that we can say is that she has moved from being a doormat to being a trophy. From the Meena Kumari who cried and had a Rajkumar or a Pradeep Kumar trample on her, yet with the hope of saying, Kabhi to milegi, kahin to milegi, bahar unki manzil, to a Deepika Padukone who in a film like Gehrai says, I don't mind sleeping out of marriage for no reason, not even in the manner of the Deepti Nawal in Phir Bhi or a Shabana Azmi in Ek Pal, or as a victim in Ankur. No, none of this is just inexplicable, unaccountable. Why not? And of course, today we've also had the Supreme Court saying that fidelity is not what a woman should be, or a man should be expecting from his wife. So I'm not going into that argument. All that I'm saying is logically, it does not find a space any longer in the narrative. This notwithstanding, we still continue to objectify women. Even today, mainstream actresses, it could be Alia Bhatt, it could be Deepika, you name her, they continue to do films where they have no problems, where they are objectified. And this, when you come down south, is a pandemic. Film after film after film after film, you will see the Telugu hero looking at the heroine in a half sari, the camera stopping at the navel, the blouse is going up, the breeze coming. And we thought this was as old as one of Adavi Ramadu's songs of N.T. Ramarao. No, the more we change, the more constantly where we are mentally, and that is a very serious issue with our cinema. Unfortunately, women in our cinema also have not found their own sexual space. There are a few films like Dev D, very interesting take on Sarat Chandra's Devdas, in contradistinction to the Paru that you see in all other films. Over here, the main character says, I have a right to my sensuality and my sexuality. It was a very, very important statement that the filmmaker makes, in contradistinction to how everybody else in earlier times were very apologetic. Women were very, very apologetic about their sexual desires, notwithstanding that most poignant, Na jao saiyan chuda ke baiya kasam tumhari main ro padungi, Meena Kumari Geeta Dutt for the film Sahib Bibi aur Gulam. Of course, you had Guide, one of the first films that showed the right of a woman to come out of the turmoil of a marriage that did not recognize her persona, and her willingness in terms of physicality also to have another man in her life, Guide. And it was way ahead of its times. And very strangely, while Vijay Anand or Goldie's screenplay was accepted in India, the Perlis Buck version of the movie in the West flopped. Was it because the West was not willing to accept Wahida Rahman, or whether we wanted the Devanand Wahida Rahman film to go as a success? Another moot point, but the fact remains that this whole theory that maybe the West is more willing to accept these kind of things didn't stand the Guide test. We've had films where women are given importance. Our typical example is Mother India, Mere Paas Maa Hai Diwar. We have Khoobsurat, Very interestingly, Anand. We all talk about the cancer patient who's dying, ever smiling, Anand. How many of us over here know that a near repeat of Anand by Rishikesh Mukherjee himself was played by Jaya Bhaduri? How many? Millie. Yes, a few. Millie. How many of us remember Millie as much as we remember Anand? Maybe more because we remember Badi Suni Suni and Aaye Tum Yaad Mujhe rather than for the film. So, our women characters also don't seem to carry the shelf life that men characters do. Then we've had Hazar Chaurasi Ki Maa, we've had Dusri Sita. Now, both these films, we must understand both these films in a context of Jaya Bachchan very recently in one of her talks with granddaughter said that she is very disappointed that she was not given the kind of recognition she deserved. I don't know that. But I do know that she's come up with some amazing performances and she's won awards for them. Dusri Sita is an amazing film. It has R.D. Burman's music. And I would strongly recommend it to people who have not seen the film. Dusri Sita. It's about a woman suffering. She kills her husband and she defends it on the ground that she was sought to be tortured in a domestic violence case. This is much before our parliamentarians woke up to the fact of domestic violence. Then there is a very interesting film, Hindi film called Angry Indian Goddesses. This is a story about 4 girls who go to Goa well before Priyanka Chopra came on the streets and said, why should men have all the fun? Then there is Godmother. There is Earth. Now, Earth coming as it did from Mahesh Bhatt makes for interesting psychological reading. 2 of his films, one for the masses in the main theatres and then one on the small screen, Phir Teri Kahani Yaad Aayi. Both deal with the same story. And it is my opinion, and I'm sure this is going to raise a huge debate. I believe that Pooja Bhatt in Phir Teri Kahani Yaad Aayi carried out a far better performance than Smita Patil, I repeat, than Smita Patil did in Earth. But that's not the question. The point I'm making is that if you look at Earth, while the large part of the story could be about how Shabana as a character was evolving, the real statement of a liberated woman comes in the end, when she refuses to be going back to what was then seen as respectable matrimony, when her husband was willing to come and take her back. The other aspect is, of course, we've had Kahani, Mardangi. There's an interesting film called Chalk and Duster, starring Shabana Azmi and Juhi Chawla. There is, of course, Damini. There is Gangubai, which is again, you know, okay, Sanjay Leela Bansali's genre of filmmaking, where I'm not going to review Gangubai for you now, but okay, it's a more contemporary story of a sex worker almost becoming a drug peddler. Then, however, while there has been an increased space, or at least a recognition of the need for increased space for women empowerment, either in terms of sexuality in contradistinction to sensuality, when you have Mere Haathon Mein Nau Nau Churiyan, to women not just being empowered in the political field, Andhi, in the field of crime, Godmother, or the other film that stars Rani Mukherjee, Vidya Balan, I don't remember the name of the movie, where she runs a Notch house between the borderlines of India and Pakistan, but sees women in their own space. They don't see Mother India in the context of Birju. They see Neeraja as Neeraja herself. Now, this complex evolution is an important understanding that we are probably fine-tuning ourselves to global women more than to the Indian woman qua what she was 20 years, 30 years, 40 years ago. Therefore, those typical ideal bahu, saas, ma, the behen, Farida, Jalal, Nazima, those stereotypes are slowly going away. Obviously, because 3 hours have become 2 hours 20 minutes, and you have now 10-15 minutes more of bedroom scenes which have become imperative to our films to make people understand that man and women have a relationship. You have to show that they are having it physically as often as you can. I am only worried of the day when they are going to show that man and women eat and therefore they have a digestive process. Having said this, I must also acknowledge that our cinema had some very powerful actors in the 60s, 50s. That kind of talent of women actors may be missing today. Meena Kumari, Manthan, look at her filmography, Seema, Sujata, Bandini. Amazing actors. Then, of course, how can one not talk about Shabana Azmi? I think arguably one of the greatest that this country has produced across genres, across languages. Today, I would have loved to see an actress who has a dialogue delivery like Meena Kumari. Unfortunately, when we have more women-centric films, we have film directors searching, trying hard to find heroines who will justify it. And then you find people like Sanjay Leela Bansali who are trying to play it out on their camera, on the glids around, rather than putting the camera on the emotions of an actress. Compare this with, I'll give you just one scene to tell you how Meena Kumari is a great actress. I'm not talking about all her award-winning films, her great performances. There's this boat ride that she takes with her ex-lover, or she continues to love him, of course, Rajkumar, who's married to Nadira. This film is Dil Apna aur Preet Parai. There's this lovely Shankar Ji Kishan song, Ajeeb Dastaan hai ye kahan shuru kahan khatam. Ye shaam jab bhi aayegi tum humko yaad aoge. There's this one line, there's a single tear that comes down from Meena Kumari's eye. If ever you get an opportunity to watch this movie, watch it again. She uses her little finger just to take this tear away because she doesn't want to see anybody noticing that she is weeping when she is singing this Lata Mangeshkar number. Now, this was the class of sensitivity that Meena Kumari brought in the 60s to our cinema, at a time when you had to be loud, when our cinema had yet not grown out of its theatre angles. So, it is so unfortunate that even Shabana Azmi will have to make a few loud statements and smooch just to show, to reiterate her agenda when she is doing Ricky or Rani. Not that Shabana was any less an actor than Meena Kumari, that's not the statement I'm making. I'm only saying that today, while we have scripts ready, we somehow are not having those kind of actors who can carry off these scripts. Women directors, I can name about 10 of them who are great, which itself is sad. Yeah, but if you ask me about 10 directors, men, also I may find the same challenge. But having said that, let's look at 10 of them who I have listed. Sai Paranjpi, if you've forgotten her, Sparsh and Chashme Baddu, two absolutely chalk and cheese films. Farha Khan, of course, you all know her. Zoya Akhtar, Gauri Shinde, Meghna Gulzar, Kalpana Lajmi, Meera Nair and Aparna Sen. Aparna unfortunately has not been making one too many Hindi films. I'd love to see her come back and make something like Park Avenue or Chaurangi for us. What films did Aparna give us? I think of all this, while Farha represents woman power as a film director, she doesn't bring on board that additional sensitivity that one associates with the gender. I'm again not sounding sexist, I'm trying to say that they have certain greater attributes than what we men can bring on board. And for example, Sai Paranjpi, watch her sparsh. She is dealing with a man's world, and yet look at the space she would give Shabana Azmi in the film. This is about what a woman can bring as sensitive. Or watch even Dil Dhadakne Do, that Zoya Akhtar gives the kind of space to even somebody like, what's her name, that best actress nowadays, Shefali Chaya. The fact that you can take Shefali in a film itself shows that you're a sensitive filmmaker. That's another ball game. She's one of my faves. And you need those kind of directors, and I only hope when we talk about women in our cinema, we see more women directors of this kind coming along. The next aspect of our cinema that I should be dealing with is probably violence. Now, this is a major problem with our cinema. We celebrate violence. And how do we celebrate violence? You know, one justification is, well, we watch it every day in the West. Please understand the difference. There is a sync that happens. When you watch a James Bond movie, or when you watch a wild western and you see a lot of violence there is still a geographical layer that distances you from that alternate reality. But you subconsciously break the threshold when you see your own men doing it. As a consequence of which today, we have definitely a greater incidence of violence relatable to the kind of cinema we are making. Now, I am not talking about, somebody can well ask me, every Hindi film has 5 songs that a hero and heroine sing. How many of us sing our own lyrics and dance with 2 left legs like Sunny Deol does, or very well like Hrithik Roshan does? So, life doesn't really imitate art, but that's not correct. All of us in our bathrooms try to sing very well. And all of us have a trait of violence in us. The question is, if culturally this kind of violence is acceptable, then you become less apologetic about having to exercise that power. And there lies the danger of increasing acceptance of violence in our cinema. I'll quote a study of Bollywood films. 90% has violence. It contributes to teaching techniques of violence, aggression against particularly the fair sex, and indifference towards real life miseries. Now, the last of these is very worrisome. If you keep on seeing 5 guys beat up 2 guys, or if you are told that the hero is a good police officer and he can beat up the guy in the jail, he can beat up the villain. I am going to talk about a Wednesday in a short while. Then what happens is, your sensitivity falls when you read a newspaper which says the policeman beat up somebody. चलता है भाई, उन्हें खराब आदमी है, कर देंगे. These become our defenses, these become our acceptable norms, which is not the basis of the democracy that we are talking about. A study by Columbia says, on a country longitudinal study, heavy viewers of ongoing screen violence were more likely to commit serious crimes, treat their families and partners aggressively, punish their kids more seriously than non-viewers, but a decade after is this theory. Today, a decade is not much time, it is happening much faster. This was a theory that happened at least 15-20 years ago. Now, there is violence. For example, if you take a film like Akrosh, Govind Nilani didn't need 10 guys beating up 100 like Ravi Teja does in a Telugu film. All that he needed was a dark, silent evening with Nasiruddin Shah sitting in a courtroom and a glass pane breaking. This was violence. But today, you know how you can have violence. I am waiting for a day when I am going to see a Hindi film villain says, Uska khoon pee jaunga. He is inspired by Dharmendra saying, Main tera khoon pee jaunga. And the villain saying, Mujhe uska khoon chahiye. He will come, slit somebody's neck, take a glass, pour his blood and drink it up. Don't be surprised if this is going to happen in our cinema. The trend is moving towards that. Don't forget, you had one of our very famous actors in a film. What did he do? He takes snakes and crocodiles from a box and just keeps eating them. Vikram, if I am not film, the movie Vikram, not you. So, these kind of things do happen. So, after all, art sometimes imitates lives, sometimes draws up seeming mirages, creates milestones of depravity and depravity, and we humans are capable of matching them. And then we celebrate anarchy. Now, this is another dangerous part of our violence. Look at Satya, look at Pathan, look at Aakhri Rasta, look at Zanjeer. This police officer thinks I am honest, therefore I can beat you up. Now, this is unacceptable. When will we as a people realize that violence by the state is unacceptable in a system governed by the rule of law, even if they were the killer, if they were the rapists in the Disha murder case? This is not acceptable in a civilized society. How does cinema do it? It inoculates us, it creates antibodies in us, it creates a sense of justification. It says the police officer is the good man, questionable. That guy who they have identified as the bad guy, questionable. The equation is in the police station, instant justice is done, questionable. Put all these questions together, they find a very comfortable answer societally, and that is extremely dangerous to a polity that is committed as of today to a system governed by the rule of law. Then you have films like Suryavanshi, Simba, Singham. Look at the Singham, Rohit Shetty. I don't care a damn how many cars he burns up or breaks. Ever since Firoz Khan did it in Aprad, everybody thinks good stylized violence is breaking up cars up and down. Good for the automobile engineers. Maybe Detroit will become another live city after a long time. We don't care about that. Fact is, tomorrow, the young guys think, "Arey, gaadi aisa chalana hai," and look at the number of accidents you have today. Anybody could say, "Come on, Ravi, nobody saw Suryavanshi, they all are like that." I am not saying they are not. I am saying these become acceptable documentations for a societal behavior, and that as a collective we need to tell ourselves is not acceptable. And as long as we are quiet about this, our filmmakers, Rohit Shetty included, will believe, after all they are making so much of money. Isn't Mr. Reddy saying that after making films like Animal? He's saying, after all of you are accepting it, that's the kind of man you want to see. You want to see somebody so toxic. And that, I think, is a great danger. Ladies and gentlemen, there are lots more things that I would have liked to talk to you about, but I told you that I am like a Hindi filmmaker, quite unedited. I don't like to cut off many of the shots that I have already scanned. So, I have really running short of time, almost spoken for an hour. So, maybe whatever little more time we have, I will sign off here on issues that I have raised or on issues that I have not, and you have an opinion. Questions are more than welcome for whatever amount of time that Vikram would permit. Thank you very much for giving me this patient here.
Thank you. I don't think you had a talk like this in Manthan for, I don't think ever. Not that it is being all over, I'm not saying that it is all over the place, but we are so used to discussing the concerns of the world and feeling burdened at the end of it. So this is a very refreshing topic and a very refreshing way of speaking about the topic. So thank you very much for that. Before I mean, I'm sure there will be many questions. There is an encyclopedia of issues to talk about. But one thing, even within mainstream, you haven't really, I mean, what would you say about that brief period, the same time as Amitabh Bachchan was running by, there were people in different parts of the country trying out different things. I mean, the term that was given then was the new wave. It didn't last for long, but it was something different. Can you tell us what you think about that?
I have an answer. You know, again, Vikram was talking about we being students in college together. This is circa 1973, 74. India was going through a very bad time. We had wars, we had strikes every second day, and we had just gone into college. So, we just looked for an excuse to bunk college. We were sitting in a class where somebody was teaching us Russian economic history. Why, I don't know. But they were part of my syllabus and we had to read Russian economic history. And we were all sitting in class and suddenly a group of boys came and said, all of you get out, we are on strike. All of us got up, our lecturer said, sit down for 5 minutes. They'll all come, you'll leave. So, they went and you know, there were still days when the lecturer said, go, these boys will come, and those boys believed in it. So, that is a different paradigm altogether, difficult for us to believe today, but that happened. So, the lecturer said, I just wanted to see the enthusiasm with which all of you can leave. That is because of a universal theory, she said. And these are words that were told to me in 1973. Count the number of years, I still remember her exact words. She said, evil is a greater influence than good. That is why Amitabh Bachchan cinema lasts longer than new wave cinema does. 1. 2, I'll just finish this. 2, I told you in my talk, if new wave cinema had given music a little more space, then probably we went home with something to carry home other than what you said we all carry at an end of a Manthan meeting, something very heavy. Today, you will just take back memories of what he said about Vaida Rahman, what he said about Deepika Padukone, what he said about Alia Bhatt, all those youngsters. They will definitely think about Alia Bhatt while they are going home. Some of here will think about Meena Kumari. So, we have something lighter to think about. Therefore, it will last longer in our memories. That is all.
Ravi, I have a question. I think that if there is one thing which unites India and India, I mean, apart from Panir but Masala, is A.R. Rahman's music. I wonder why you didn't mention that.
Okay. This A.R. Rahman music, a very personal opinion again, and I said this on television on the day A.R. Rahman won his first Oscar. I said it is strange today that it is A.R. Rahman who brings India its first music Oscar. Let anybody worth his name, A.R. Rahman included, sit down and listen to Naushad Salil Chowdhury, S.D. Burman, Shankar Jaikishan, and tell me A.R. Rahman is better, I'll go on my knees and say, I'm sorry Manthan, I was wrong in excluding A.R. Rahman. Down south, I'll still say Ilayaraja over A.R. Rahman. Yes. Okay, 1 minute. They choose the person who's asking the questions, I give the answers. Yeah.
The mic is in my hand. It's such a delight to listen to you about the whole trajectory of Indian cinema. So I also run a small movie club at Lamakan every Wednesday. So we have this international cinema being screened. So a couple of responses and then a question. First is why didn't O.P. Nair take Lata Mangeshkar?
No, Gurudat. O.P. Nair.
Yeah, because she was such a great star and also she didn't want to sing for a co-actress as such. So there were some differences. That's the reason. So a lot of differences of ego might come in between. That's what I heard it. So while you were also making your presentation about the women directors, you didn't mention about Deepa Mehta, the trilogy of Fire.
Yeah.
So that would have been also added. So my question to you is about when is the Indian cinema going to rise to the level of the international cinema, especially the world cinema, and we will be able to shun away the hero worship. But do you see some kind of hope with the OTT platform?
I don't know because as some people see cinema, I'm not very good at crystal ball. Having said that, I also don't see the West as the best formula of good cinema. When will we reach the stage of Korean cinema? Maybe. And there are different paradigms. Why should my best oranges be as good as your best apples? Within the defined parameters of our cinema, we can improve. That's a huge journey that we have made. Independent of whether we are better, good as Western cinema, intrinsically I think we have enough story, enough drama, enough material, enough star, enough talent to make good cinema. Will we do it? I don't know. Can we do it? I guess we can. You said something?
Enough song, you missed a song.
Song.
You had mentioned about parallel cinema. So I remember those days NFDC would release all those, most of them. So the purpose was not to be a commercial hit. The purpose was to promote art films and to probably get recognition internationally. In my view, Artha Satya was the movie which was sort of made for that audience, made as an art film, but turned out to be a huge commercial success.
Yes.
And thanks to that movie, since then, that parallel cinema distinction was lost. So we had actors who would bring out movies which were far more sensible than the commercial movies. But lately then again, as you mentioned, the violence has taken over. So do you see us roll back to more sensible movies down the line?
Today, films like Pathan are already available on OTT. See if you can get Mulk. No, it's not available on OTT. It's not, unfortunately, because I've been strongly recommending Mulk to a lot of people, including Dr. Aditi, to see it, but they've not been able to see it because it's not available on OTT platforms. Now, see, I said, my final answer is as good as what I told him, as long as there's hope. Hopefully, we move in cycles. Saul Bellow once said that every generation believes that it is at its raw end, its worst, but we've survived it. We've survived Ghazni, then we survived Indira Gandhi, then we will survive whoever. So, so we all live on hope. But today, if you're seeing how we are walking exactly, I'm not very sure it's going to happen immediately. But it takes one Friday to change everything.
Okay, this is something that I've always wanted to ask someone and never found. I did ask, but never found the right answer. I thought this is the right platform. So, in a group of well-read, intelligent film lovers, when I brought up the topic of why show such explicit scenes of physical intimacy in films. Now, this is something that you brought up in passing. That is why but I wanted you to say more about it. See, to put it at the risk of sounding crude, I want to ask people that, see, there are some things which we do physically which don't necessarily have to be shown on film. They are done. Like you see a man going into the loo, of course he's defecating. So, do you want to actually film it and show it? There's no need to.
Shambhari came very close to it.
But in film after film, and when I bring up this topic, people they think I'm being prudish. But I'm saying no, it's not necessary. Why do we not have something to be imaginative?
Every filmmaker also caters to the voyeurist in many of us. One, I'll just finish. Also, we also do a lot of culture copy. I eat the pizza not because it's more tasty than the persists, but today it's the global market, it's more trendy to be saying, I had pizza. How does it sound? I had persists too. It doesn't sound nice, you see. So, I need to copy something from Western cinema. So, one of the things which is easy to copy, easy to cater, easy that people will accept is physicality of sex. Now, while I believe that it is wholly unessential, which I broadly suggested during my statement, I believe it's my statement, and over here let me add, I'm totally open to all kinds of sexual preferences. But today if you see films, there is a very crude methodology of saying, let's accept it by putting in a kind of a story which has nothing to do with the story at all. So, these kind of, tangential acceptance theories are avoidable, which a Govind Nilani, a Shyam Benegal, a Mani Kaul, or Ray, or Ritwik would never have done in their careers. Or a Guru Dutt would not have done it. Forget avant-garde filmmakers.
Twice in your talk you mentioned, you referred to the 50s and 60s as the golden period. Now I want to find out, is there really something like a golden period, or is it that over a period of time, only outstanding songs and films survive, others die down, because hundreds and thousands of movies are being made, hundreds and thousands of songs are being sung.
1,000 a year is the statistics for India.
Yeah. So
Hindi.
Yeah. So we're not Hindi only. So everything doesn't survive. So maybe later on you'll say that 70s and 80s were also a golden period. Well, let me tell you, once I bought a cassette
I would be alive.
No, once I bought a cassette of unknown songs of Mohammed Rafi. I listened to it once and just chucked it away. They were so pathetic. The same Mohammed Rafi who's sung those excellent songs. So is there really something?
The same time as Amitabh Bachchan was running Live, there were people in different parts of the country trying out different things. I mean, the term that was given then was the new wave. It didn't last for long, but it was something different. Can you tell us what you think about that?
I have an answer. Vikram was talking about being students in college together. This is circa 1973, 74. India was going through a very bad time with the war. We had strikes every second year. And we had just gone into college, so we just looked for an excuse to bunk college. We were sitting in a class where somebody was teaching us Russian economic history. Why? I don't know. But they were part of my syllabus and we had to read Russian economic history. And we were all sitting in class and suddenly a group of boys came and said, "Oh, get out, we're on strike." All of us got up, our teacher, lecturer said, "Sit down for 5 minutes." They'll all come or leave, so they went and there were still days when the lecturer said, "Go," these boys would come and those boys believed in it. So that's a different paradigm altogether, difficult for us to believe today, but that happened. So the lecturer said, I just wanted to see the enthusiasm with which all of you can lead. That is because of a universal theory, she said. And these are words that were told to me in 1973, count the number of years, I still remember her exact words. She said, evil is a greater influence than good. That is why Amitabh Bachchan cinema lasts longer than New Wave cinema does. One. Two, I just mentioned. Two, I told you in my talk, if New Wave cinema had given music a little more space, then probably we went home with something to carry home, other than what you said we all carry at the end of a Manthan meeting, something very heavy. Today you just take back memories of what he said about Vaidya Rahman, what he said about Deepika Padukone, what he said about Alia Bhatt, all those youngsters, they will definitely think about Alia Bhatt while they are going home. Some of here will think about Meena Kumari. So we have something lighter to think about, therefore it will last longer than this. That's all.
Ravi, another question. I think that if there is one thing which unites India, pan-India, apart from Panir Bhatt is A.R. Rahman's music. I wonder why you didn't mention that.
Okay. This A.R. Rahman music is very personal to me. And I said this on television on the day A.R. Rahman won his first Oscar. I said it is strange today that it is A.R. Rahman who brings India its first music Oscar. Let anybody worth his name, A.R. Rahman included, sit down and listen to Naushad, Salil Chowdhury, S.D. Burman, Shankar Jayakishan, and tell me A.R. Rahman is better. I'll go on my knees and say, I'm sorry Manthan, I was wrong in excluding A.R. Rahman. Down south, I still say Ilay Raja over here. Yes.
Such a delight to listen
Okay,
to.
1 minute. They choose the person who's asking the questions, I give the answers. Yeah.
That's the reason the mic is in my hand. It's such a delight to listen to you about the whole trajectory of Indian cinema. So I also run a small movie club at Lamakan every Wednesday. So we have this, international cinema being screened. So a couple of responses and then a question. First is why didn't O.P. Nayyar take Lata Mangeshkar?
No, Gurudat. O.P. Nayyar.
Yeah, because she was such a great star and also she didn't want to sing for a co-actress as such. So there were some differences. That's the reason. So a lot of differences of the goals might come in between. That's what I heard it. So while you were also making your presentation about the women directors, you didn't mention about Deepa Mehta, the trilogy of Fire.
Yeah.
So that would have been also added. So my question to you is about when is the Indian cinema going to rise to the level of the international cinema, especially the world cinema, and we will be able to shun away the hero worship. But do you see some kind of hope with the OTT platform?
I don't know because as somebody who sees cinema, I'm not very good at crystal ball. Having said that, I also don't see the West as the best formula of good cinema. When will we reach the stage of Korean cinema? Maybe. And there are different paradigms. Why should my best oranges be as good as your best apples? Within the defined parameters of our cinema, we can improve. That's a huge journey that we have made. Independent of whether we are better, good as Western cinema, intrinsically I think we have enough story, enough drama, enough material, enough star, enough talent to make good cinema. Will we do it? I don't know. Can we do it? I guess we can. You said something?
Enough song, you missed a song.
Song.
You had mentioned about parallel cinema. So I remember those days NFDC would release all those, most of them. So the purpose was not to be a commercial thing. The purpose was to promote art films and to probably get recognition internationally. In my view, Artha Satya was the movie which was sort of made for that audience, made as an art film, but turned out to be a huge commercial success.
Yes.
And thanks to that movie, since then, that parallel cinema distinction was lost. So we had actors who would bring out movies which were far more sensible than the commercial movies. But lately then again, as you mentioned, the violence has taken over. So do you see us roll back to more sensible movies down the line?
You know, today, films like Manthan are already available on OTT. See if you can get Mulk. No, it's not available on OTT. It's not, unfortunately, because I've been strongly recommending Mulk to a lot of people, including Dr. Aditi, to see it, but they've not been able to see it because it's not available on OTT platforms. Now, see, you know, my final answer is as good as what I told him. As long as there's life, there's hope. Hopefully, we move inside this. Saul Bellow once said that every generation believes that it is at its raw end, its worst, but we've survived it. We've survived Ghazni, then we survived Indira Gandhi, then we will survive. So we all live on hope. But today, if you are seeing how we are walking exactly, I'm not very sure it's going to happen immediately. But it takes one Friday to change everything.
Okay, this is something that I've always wanted to ask someone. I did ask, but never found the right answer. I thought this is the right platform. So, in a group of, well-read, intelligent film lovers, when I brought up the topic of why show such explicit scenes of physical intimacy in films. Now, this is something that you brought up in passing. That is why but I wanted you to say more about it. To put it at the risk of sounding crude, I want to ask people that, see, there are some things which we do physically which don't necessarily have to be shown on film. They are done. Like you see a man going into the loo, of course he's defecating. So, do you want to actually film it and show it? There's no need to.
Shyam Benegal came very close to it.
But in film after film, and when I bring up this topic, people they think I'm being prudish. But I'm saying, no, it's not necessary. Why do you not give something to the imagination?
I think it is true. I think every filmmaker also caters to the voyeurist in many ways. One, let us finish. Also, we also do a lot of culture copy. I eat the pizza not because it's more tasty than the tesseract, but today it's the global market. It's more trendy to be saying, I had pizza. How does it sound? I had tesseract too. It doesn't sound nice. See, so I need to copy something from Western cinema. So one of the things which is easy to copy, easy to cater, easy that people will accept is physicality of sex. Now, while I believe that it is wholly unessential, which I broadly suggested it during my statement, I believe it's my statement, and over here let me add. I'm totally open to all kinds of sexual preferences. But today, if you see films, there is a very crude methodology of saying, let's accept it by putting in a kind of a story which has nothing to do with the story at all. So these kind of, tangential acceptance theories are avoidable, which a Govindilan, a Shyam Benegal, a Mani Kaur, or Ray, or Ritwik would never have done in their films. Or a Guru would not have done it. Forget avant-garde films.
Twice in your talk you mentioned you refer to the 50s and 60s as the golden period. Now I want to find out, is there really something like a golden period, or is it that over a period of time, only outstanding songs and films survive, others die down, because hundreds and thousands of movies are being made, hundreds and thousands of songs are being sung.
1,000 a year is the statistics for India.
Yeah. So
Hindi.
Yeah. So we're talking about Hindi only. So everything doesn't survive. So maybe later on you'll say that 70s and 80s were also a golden period. Well, let me tell you, once I bought a cassette
Thank God I would be alive.
No,
But
once I bought a cassette of unknown songs of Mohammed Rafi. I listened to it once and just chucked it away. They were so pathetic. The same Mohammed Rafi who's sung those excellent songs.
If a Rang aur Noor ki ye barat kise pesh karu is coming, or any one of those less known Mohammed Rafi songs come, I listen to them more often. I yearn to listen to them rather than listen to Zindagi Bhar Nahi Bhulenge Wo Barsat Ki Raat ya Chaudhwi Ka Chand Ho ya Ehsaan Tera Hoga Mujh Par, because you know I'm sick and tired of hearing those songs. So what happens is there is this unique combo. Some songs survive time, some songs don't survive time. But more songs of the, okay, now songs of the 50s and 60s survived during the 2000, the 2010, the 2020. How is it the songs of the 40 did not, except one or two songs of Saigal Saab like Jab Dil, Diya Jala, one of a few songs like that. Therefore, theoretically what you are saying is possible, but my take would be, if we are going to remember the 80s songs after 20 years, one of the first things I am going to thank God when I go and meet him in heaven is, thank God I am not going to sit and listen to the eternal melodies of Bappi Lahiri.
The current movies which are coming in past 20 years or 30 years, most of the youth are getting wrongly impacted, and the crime rate is increased very much, and the ethics have gone down so badly. What's your thought on this?
I don't know if ethics has gone down largely. To begin with, I think today's generation is a far more honest generation than mine was. Far more honest. They call a spade better than we did. I'm sure if I had an opportunity, I would have smooched 10 girls. These guys have one girl in their life, they keep smooching. So this is nothing to do with decaying morality or something like that. Having said that, if there is a growing tendency to non-accountability, I don't blame the youth of today as much as I blame the generation that failed to set standards to them. What do they see for them to emulate? Me? That's what they are doing. Look at the kind of leaders we have in the country, and then you will know why the youngsters are what they are.
Yeah, Ravi, as you rightly said, the golden period of 50s, 60s, music was the hallmark. But don't you think, more than that, the poetry of those days carried the day?
I said that about music then.
What, you know, for example, I can't think of Shankar Jaikishan without Hasrat or Shailendra. I can't think of Barmanda without Shailendra. I can't think of Naushad without Sahir. Right? So, lyric, I can't think of Madan Mohan without Kaifi Azmi. Kar chale hum fida janatan satiyo. Can I think of Madan Mohan without thinking of Kaifi Azmi? No, I can't. So this, when I said music, I meant the three integral parts: the orchestra, the music, the lyrics, and the singer.
Yeah. What do you make of RRR winning an Oscar? Is there something wrong? I mean, is it a credit to RRR, or is something wrong with the thing? And the phenomena of Rajinikanth being so popular in a state country like Japan, what is this cross-cultural thing happening?
Is socially acceptable. Why do so many people think X is one of the greatest? I don't have an answer. Sometimes, you know, sociologically we are going through a low. Vadiyar has a magic about him. Now, if you ask me why did Krishna become such a great popular actor, or why was Jitendra more acceptable than Nasiruddin Shah, then you will have to go to Richard Bach, who said, ask a question properly, it will answer itself. And the test to that question would be, why is it that the laity prefer X to Y? The critical aspect of that is the question there. Now, the other aspect of your question was RRR. You know, I think Oscar has always been a market function. I don't need to say more.
Hi, it was very interesting listening to you talk. So mine is more of an observation on what you were saying. So I personally feel that every decade in Indian cinema, whether it is Bollywood or Tollywood or whichever boat the cinema is coming from,
they were all good in equal.
Absolutely, the original Hollywood being the one. But every decade has its, every decade was reflecting the societal changes which were happening. Everyone agrees that. Like, for example, we had the religious films initially.
Yeah, now we have Article 371.
Socialist cinema, then you have the anti-hero cinema. But there's one very interesting idea here. When we're talking of Telugu cinema and the pitch the industry has gone down to, one forgets that there was a time in the late 50s, there was one woman director, producer, musician, Bhanumati, who in her films, NTR and Nageshwar Rao played second fiddle to her. In fact, there was a film called Chandi Rani, which was later remade in Hindi, where Dilip Kumar plays a second role to her. So, for women to have that kind of agency in the film industry to what we have come today is really a sad story of, that's one observation. And also because a lot of people have commented about the, oh my God, what the state of cinema today. I feel that we are getting the cinema which
we deserve. Because a lot of women, I'll tell you, I went one night at 11 o'clock. I travelled 5 hours from Vijayawada because I had to do a film review. At 11 o'clock, I went to a theatre to see this film of Balki, Ghumar, right? Jhumar, Ghumar, whatever that is. And the next theatre was showing that Sunny Deol's movie. What was that? Gadar 2, sorry. Gadar 2, Gadar 2, whatever. So, one was houseful, Gadar 2, and this was running to empty theatres. I keep telling many of my friends over here, please go and see this good film. They're all so busy, you know, this upper middle class intellectual who believes that sitting in their drawing room in the midst of all the nice little things they have to do, they can change society. They will not. How many of us over here would go and see a good Hindi film when Moving Images is making some of our best films and showing it to us every Sunday? We don't.
Also, one more suggestion. Please go and see a film in a single film. A film made by a women director. I went and did this as an experiment. I went and saw Lipstick Under My Burqa. And it was such a horrible experience.
You tell me, I saw this movie in Aurangabad. And this guy wanted to go and have a bath after he saw it.
No, because people were laughing and smirking at the wrong times, and it's really terrible to see the kind of reaction.
And the same things men were doing. Shauki. Yeah. Let's take Shauki.
I know Basu Chatterjee was making it more light-hearted than the Ratna Pathak part of the movie. But then men can ogle at women, women have no business to have sex with a younger boy. This is the way we are culturally trained. Very true, very true. But you know, just to add to your Bhanumati example, take a film like Mamta in Hindi. Suchitra Sen, who is playing second fiddle to her? Ashok Kumar. Right? Take a film like Sahib Bibi or Ghulam. Who is playing second fiddle to Meena Kumari? Guru Dutt, one of the biggest filmmakers of our time. So, there have always been larger than life, but very few examples. The fact that you could talk about Bhanumati itself tells the story.
Hello sir. I read your talk. I'm not comfortable the way you are criticizing
criticizing a commercial movie, and I will tell you why. We, the people, the people who are sitting here, we read a certain type of literature. We have a certain.
Do we read at all?
Yeah, whatever it is, whatever books we read, whatever. I mean, please don't be defensive. I'm just, just setting a context.
No, please, I'm not,
We learn from a certain ideology. We read similar books. We listen to similar speakers. We actually buy clothes from similar shops.
Okay.
The point is, we don't understand that we are still very few in number. Now I have set the context. Few months ago, I was traveling in Bihar, and every day I was in a new district of Bihar, and you know how Bihar is. I was very tired. At the end of the day, I went to watch Animal, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, Animal is not the type of movie which I will usually go to watch, but in that particular context, that 7 days of Bihar trip, I loved every scene of it, and I laughed at every scene. And I was also surprised with myself, why is it happening? But I thought maybe that's what happened with millions of people who are so tired every day that something as crass as Animal also they find very entertaining.
Yeah, I completely disagree with you on
Animal example. I think there must not be any scenario in this country, God willing, where even if there was a gun on my head and I've just come out of a Chinese torture chamber, I do not envisage a scenario where after 10 years of you-know-what, I still won't enjoy Animal. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Hey, after all, the voice of the majority, worse things have happened under that heading. So watching Animal is nothing.
Last question, anybody goes to last yeah.
This is more to Vikram. You're talking about A.R. Rahman uniting India. I would like to tell you what happened when I was a child. My mother is from Kakinada, my mother-in-law from Kottayam, and they were both bonded over the songs of Pankaj Mandi from Bengal. So that kind of India, it need not be just A.R. Rahman, it could be anybody who was popular. I think Hindi film songs brought us all together, and that is the power of, that's why maybe it becomes a golden age, because they could all relate to a song. And that's what brings, whether you are a Maharashtrian or a Punjabi or a Telugu speaking person or a Tamilian. I think the best books written on Hindi cinema came from Tamil Nadu. A person from a Tamilian wrote a very good book, and a good critic was again a Tamilian. So we can't really compartmentalize when it comes to Hindi.
Just before I sign off, and just 2 lines. Incidentally, this is my ode to our cinema, to all the great filmmakers who we genuinely miss, including the singer who sang this song in her original, in the voice that could give Lata Mangeshkar the run for her money. And I would say, unlike her, but imitate what she said. हमारी सांसों में आज तक वो हिना की खुशबू महक रही है. हमारी सांसों में आज तक वो हिना की खुशबू महक रही है. लबों पे नगमे मचल रहे हैं, नजर में मस्ती छलक रही है. हमारी सांसों में आज तक वो हिना की खुशबू महक रही है. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.